The air in the Dolby Theater on Oscar night 2013 is a thick, glittering fluid of ambition and anxiety. And at its absolute center, a 22-year-old from Kentucky is about to trip and fall into immortality. Her name is Jennifer Lawrence. She is a paradox, a phenomenon walking in a Dior gown. To the multiplex masses, she is Katniss Everdeen, the billion-dollar face of the Hunger Games. To the cinematic elite in this very room, she is the ferocious, emotionally naked frontrunner for Best Actress. She is on the verge of conquering two worlds that are meant to be mutually exclusive. And then, as her name echoes through history, she rises. And she falls. That single, clumsy, profoundly human stumble on the steps to glory was not an accident. It was a coronation. It was the moment that launched a superstar into the stratosphere, and in the very same instant, planted the seeds of the backlash that would inevitably follow. This is the story of that fall, and of the long, arduous climb back up. It is the story of how the most real girl in the world had to dismantle her own legend to discover who she truly was. The origin of this supernova talent lies not in the starlit hills of Hollywood, but in the humid, horse-scented earth of Indian Hills, Kentucky. Born on August 15, 1990, Jennifer Schrader Lawrence was a product of a world far removed from the delicate sensibilities of the film industry. Her father, Gary, owned a construction firm, a man who dealt in concrete and hard truths. Her mother, Karen, ran a children's summer camp with an infectious energy and a no-nonsense attitude. Jennifer was the youngest of three and the only girl. This fact was the crucible in which her personality was forged. She was not raised, she was tempered. Life with her two older brothers, Ben and Blaine, was a constant low-grade boot camp in resilience. The family nickname they gave her was not gentle. It was Nitro, a testament to her explosive, hyperactive, and utterly untamable energy. She was a tomboy, more comfortable on a sports field than in a dollhouse, her childhood a montage of scraped knees, fierce competition, and the boisterous noise of a loving but unsentimental household. She was taught to be tough, to be funny, to never ever be soft. But this tough, Nitro exterior was a carefully constructed fortress. Inside, a storm of a different kind was raging. From her earliest school days, Jennifer was plagued by a crippling social anxiety, a profound and pervasive sense of not belonging. It was more than shyness, it was a fundamental discomfort in her own skin, a feeling of being a weirdo operating on a different frequency from everyone else. This internal chaos manifested as a paralyzing fear of social situations, a constant chattering noise in her head that made genuine connection feel impossible. Her boundless energy, the very thing that earned her the Nitro nickname, was a physical symptom of this inner turmoil. Her parents, pragmatic and loving, were at a loss. They saw a daughter vibrating with an intensity they couldn't channel. A child who seemed both fiercely confident and shatteringly insecure. They tried therapy, they tried medication. Nothing seemed to quiet the storm. The cure, when it came, was a revelation. It was discovered on the dusty stage of a school play. The moment she was given a character to inhabit, a script to follow, the anxiety vanished. The noise went silent. On stage, pretending to be someone else, she found a strange and profound sense of peace. For the first time, the world made sense. It was a startling paradox. Only by becoming another person could she finally feel like herself. Her mother, Karen, witnessed the transformation firsthand. She saw a different child, a child released from an invisible prison. Acting was not a dream of fame. It wasn't a hobby. It was a psychological necessity. It was her sanctuary. This discovery ignited a ferocious, unyielding ambition. At 14, on a family trip to New York City, a chance encounter with a talent scout in Union Square felt less like an accident and more like destiny. That brief interaction solidified her resolve. This wasn't a game anymore. This was her way out. She began a relentless campaign begging her parents to let her pursue this calling. It was an audacious request from a girl with no training and no connections, a plea born of a desperation they couldn't fully understand. Her father was against it. It was a fantasy, a dangerous one. But her mother, who had seen the therapeutic power of performance, who understood this was about more than just wanting attention, finally relented. This was a gamble, a leap of faith into the unknown. The move to a rat-infested New York apartment with her mother was a brutal immersion into the unglamorous reality of the struggling actor. But even in this harsh new world, her talent was undeniable. It was raw, untutored, and utterly authentic. There was no artifice, no acting. She simply was. She landed small roles on television, paying her dues in the industry's trenches. But she was hungry for more. She yearned for a role that would demand everything from her, a character that would allow her to unleash the full force of the storm she held inside. She found it in a bleak, brutal, and beautiful story set in the impoverished, meth-ravaged Ozark Mountains. The film was Winter's Bone. The role was Ree Dolly. The fight to win that part would be the first true battle of her career, and the victory would change the course of her life forever. In the cold, unforgiving world of the Ozarks, this girl of fire and anxiety would find her true artistic voice. The role of Ree Dolly was not a job. It was a soul-deep calling. The 2010 film Winter's Bone, adapted from Daniel Woodrell's searing novel and directed by the fiercely uncompromising Deborah Granick, was a universe away from the sitcoms and episodic dramas that had marked Jennifer's early career. It was a work of brutal poetry, a neo-realist immersion into a forgotten pocket of America. Ree Dolly is a 17-year-old girl forced into the role of matriarch for her two younger siblings and catatonic mother. She is a portrait of grim resilience, a child hardened into a survivalist by circumstance. When the local sheriff informs her that her meth-cooking father has put their home up for his bail bond and vanished, Ree is forced on a perilous quest into the violent code of silence world of her extended kin to find him, dead or alive. It was one of the most challenging and coveted roles of the year, demanding a young actress who could embody world-weary strength without a trace of theatricality. The initial feedback from casting was blunt. Jennifer Lawrence was too pretty. They saw a blonde, healthy, all-American girl, not a half-starved child of the Ozarks. That rejection was a spark hitting gunpowder. The Nitro nickname, the competitive fire forged in sibling rivalries on a Kentucky farm, exploded. This wasn't just another part. She knew with an intuitive certainty that bordered on obsession that this role was hers. She refused to accept no. In a move that would become a cornerstone of her personal legend, she took matters into her own hands. She booked a red-eye flight from Los Angeles to New York, where the final auditions were being held. She walked into that audition room having not slept for a day, her hair unwashed for a week, her face raw and chapped from the biting winter wind. She was not there to act like Ree Dolly. She was there to be Ree Dolly. She was there to show them the grit beneath the glamour, the steel beneath the skin. Her audition was not a performance. It was a raw, unsentimental, and utterly hypnotic transmission of truth. She didn't just read the lines, she inhabited the silence between them. She won the part. The room was stunned. The search was over. The production of Winter's Bone was a baptism by ice. Deborah Granick, a purist committed to absolute authenticity, shot the film on location in the Missouri Ozarks during a brutal winter on a shoestring budget. The conditions were grueling. This was not a movie set, it was an immersion. Granick populated the film with local, non-professional actors, their faces and voices etched with the hard realities of the region. For Lawrence, this was a total dissolution of self. She lived in the world of the film. She learned the essential, primal skills of Ree Dolly's life. She learned to chop wood not like an actress pretending, but with the convincing, bone-weary swing of someone whose life depended on it. She learned to handle a rifle, and in the film's most infamous and stomach-churning scene, she learned to skin a real squirrel. It was a performance stripped of all vanity, every last molecule of Hollywood artifice burned away by the cold. Her own tough, tomboy upbringing had given her the physical fortitude, but it was her innate, preternatural talent that allowed her to capture the profound, silent resilience of the character. It was a masterpiece of understatement, a portrait of quiet, desperate courage. When Winter's Bone premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in January 2010, the response was a seismic shockwave. It was the talk of the festival, a bleak but powerful masterpiece that stunned audiences and critics alike. It won the Grand Jury Prize, the festival's highest honor. The tiny $2 million independent film that had almost gone straight to video began an unbelievable journey. Championed by critics who hailed Lawrence's performance as a revelation. That journey culminated in a moment that was, just 1 year prior, unthinkable. On the morning of the Academy Award nominations in January 2011, the name of a 20-year-old unknown from Kentucky was read aloud. Jennifer Lawrence was nominated for Best Actress. She was now competing against industry legends like Annette Bening and Nicole Kidman. In the space of a single year, she had gone from a struggling actress to one of the most respected performers on the planet. The Oscar campaign was a disorienting whirlwind of red carpets and designer gowns, a surreal counterpoint to the frozen, impoverished world she had just inhabited. She did not win the statue that night. It went to Natalie Portman for Black Swan, but the nomination was the true victory. It was her thunderous arrival. It was the moment that proved her instincts right. Her authenticity wasn't just her therapy, it was her superpower. The Oscar nomination for Winter's Bone did more than just change Jennifer Lawrence's career. It fundamentally altered her value in the merciless algebra of Hollywood. She was now a rare commodity, an actress who possessed both the gritty, artistic credibility of an indie darling and the fresh-faced, all-American appeal of a potential blockbuster queen. Two distinct paths to stardom now lay open before her. In a move of audacious, career-defining ambition, she chose to take both at the same time. She embarked on a dual reign, simultaneously becoming a global franchise hero and a prestige dramatic actress, a feat of scheduling, talent, and sheer will that was unprecedented in the modern era. The first path was paved by the young adult gold rush. In the early 2010s, in the wake of the culture-defining success of the Twilight Saga, every major studio was frantically searching for the next YA literary phenomenon. The undisputed crown jewel was Suzanne Collins's dark, violent, and politically charged trilogy, The Hunger Games. The story of a dystopian future where children are forced to fight to the death on television was a global sensation. Its protagonist, Katniss Everdeen, was already a literary icon, a stoic, traumatized survivor who becomes the reluctant symbol of a revolution. The casting of Katniss was a matter of global fan obsession. Dozens of talented young actresses were in contention, but Lawrence, fresh off her Oscar nomination and with her proven ability to portray gritty resilience, was a frontrunner. Yet she hesitated. The idea of that level of life-altering fame, the obsessive public scrutiny that had engulfed Kristen Stewart, was terrifying. It was a choice between her burgeoning career as a respected actress working in relative anonymity and becoming a pop culture icon. A choice that meant the permanent loss of her private life. After 3 days of intense deliberation, her mother gave her the advice that tipped the scale. Don't let fear make your decisions for you. She accepted the role. Her performance as Katniss was a revelation. In a genre prone to melodrama, Lawrence grounded the character in a raw, believable reality. This was not a glamorous action hero. She was a starving girl from the poorest district, her face a mask of stoic determination, her every action driven by the primal instinct to protect her family. She brought the same weary, world-worn gravitas of Dolly to the arena of Panem. When The Hunger Games was released in March 20, it shattered box office records. It was a true global phenomenon, but remarkably it also earned widespread critical acclaim, a rarity for a YA adaptation. The praise was aimed squarely at its star. Lawrence had done the impossible. She had launched a billion-dollar franchise while retaining her artistic integrity. She was now one of the most famous and bankable actresses in the world. But at the exact same time, she was becoming the face of a dystopian blockbuster. She was pursuing the second track of her dual reign. She had found a powerful, if famously mercurial, creative partner in director David O. Russell. He cast her in his 2012 film Silver Linings Playbook, in a role that was originally intended for an older actress. But Lawrence, auditioning via Skype from her parents' home in Kentucky, blew Russell away. He saw what the world would soon discover. She was an old soul, an actress with the emotional depth and comedic timing of a seasoned veteran packed into the body of a 22-year-old. Her portrayal of Tiffany Maxwell, a young widow grappling with grief and mental illness through a haze of confrontational honesty and explosive energy, was an electrifying high-wire act. She was volatile, hilarious, deeply wounded, fiercely intelligent. Her chaotic, combustible chemistry with co-star Bradley Cooper was the film's beating heart. Silver Linings Playbook was a critical and commercial smash, earning 8 Academy Award nominations, including one for Lawrence for Best Actress. This set the stage for the culmination of her dual reign, leading directly to that fateful night at the 85th Academy Awards. In the span of a single year, she had become both Katniss Everdeen, the box office titan, and Tiffany Maxwell, the darling of the awards circuit. Her famous trip on the stairs was the perfect physical manifestation of her public persona, a preternaturally gifted artist who refused to conform to the polished, media-trained perfection of her peers. The world fell in love with her perceived realness, her candid, filter-free interviews, her self-deprecating humor. She wasn't just a star. She was the cool girl. She was relatable. The dual victory was complete. She had conquered Hollywood from both sides, a feat that made her, for a time, the biggest star in the world. The Oscar win was not an endpoint. It was a launchpad into the stratosphere. The years immediately following 2013 were a period of almost superhuman acceleration. Jennifer Lawrence, now the anointed queen of Hollywood, became a ubiquitous cultural force, a constant, omnipresent juggernaut solidifying both pillars of her empire. Her work ethic was relentless. Her momentum seemed unstoppable. She returned to the arena in The Hunger Games. Catching Fire, 2013, a sequel that surpassed its predecessor both critically and commercially. Her performance deepened, capturing the profound PTSD and simmering rage of a girl who had survived the games but was now being forced into the role of a revolutionary leader. The weight of a nation's hope rested on her shoulders, and Lawrence made the audience feel every ounce of it. Simultaneously, she doubled down on her collaboration with David O. Russell, the director who had become her creative muse. In his 2013 ensemble crime comedy American Hustle, she took on the supporting role of Rosalind Rosenfeld, the volatile, manipulative, and tragically hilarious wife of Christian Bale's con man. Despite being significantly younger than the character, she stole every scene she was in. She was a tornado of neurosis and hairspray, a master of passive-aggressive warfare. Her unhinged, improvised scene of furiously cleaning her house while lip-syncing to Live and Let Die became the film's most iconic moment, a perfect storm of comedic chaos and pathetic rage. It was a breathtaking performance. It earned her a 3rd Academy Award nomination in 4 years. this time for Best Supporting Actress. The industry was in awe. She followed this with her fourth nomination just 2 years later, for her lead role as the tenacious inventor Joy Mangano in Russell's 2015 film Joy. 4 Oscar nominations before the age of 26. It was a historic, almost unprecedented achievement. She was no longer a rising star, she was a celestial body, a permanent fixture in the Hollywood firmament. This period of intense, non-stop success was also the period when her public persona as the relatable, down-to-earth, cool girl was codified. Her interviews became viral events. She was candid, funny, and seemingly without a filter. She talked about her love of pizza, her clumsiness on red carpets, her social anxieties. The public, weary of the carefully constructed artifice of most celebrities, was utterly captivated. They didn't just admire her, they felt like they knew her. She was the superstar you could have a beer with. This authenticity was her greatest asset. But it was also a performance of its own, a brand of realness that created an impossibly high standard. Every candid moment, every self-deprecating joke only served to build the legend. And legends are heavy things to carry. The constant exposure, the endless press tours, the feeling of being a global commodity rather than a person, it was all taking a toll. The cool girl persona was becoming a cage, its bars gilded with awards and adoration. She was trapped inside the very image that had made her a star. The pressure was immense, the spotlight was blinding. And the first faint whispers of public fatigue, a creeping cynicism from a culture that loves to build its idols only to watch them fall, were beginning to appear on the horizon. The higher she climbed, the more precarious her position became. For Jennifer Lawrence, the peak of the mountain was also the edge of the cliff. The vortex of superstardom is a dangerous place. For Jennifer Lawrence, the years of relentless work and universal adoration had created a bubble of perceived invincibility. Then, in August 2014, that bubble was burst with a single brutal act of digital violence. She became the most famous victim of a massive celebrity photo hack, an event that would become known as the fappening. A hacker breached the private iCloud accounts of numerous female celebrities, stealing and publishing hundreds of intimate private photos. Dozens of nude photos of Lawrence, taken for her then-boyfriend and never intended for any other eyes, were spread across the darkest corners of the internet in a matter of hours. The crime was a catastrophic, soul-shattering invasion of her privacy. It was a violation of the most profound kind. In the face of this trauma, the world expected a certain response: hiding, shame, a tearful apology. Lawrence gave them none of it. Instead, she responded with a righteous and powerful fury. In a landmark interview with Vanity Fair, she refused to let the narrative be defined as a scandal. She defined it herself. "It is not a scandal, it is a sex crime," she stated with a cold, clear rage. "It is a sexual violation. It's disgusting. The law needs to be changed, and we need to change. Just because I'm a public figure, just because I'm an actress, does not mean that I asked for this." Her defiant, powerful response was a watershed moment. It was a refusal to accept the shame that society so often places on the female victims of such crimes. She was not the one who had done something wrong. She was the one who had been wronged. Publicly, she was a warrior, but privately, the event was a source of deep, lasting trauma. The trust she had in the world, in the very idea of a private life, was shattered. The cool girl who had once seemed so open and accessible was now forced to confront the darkest, most predatory side of public obsession. From that moment on, the spotlight was no longer just a source of validation. It was a potential threat. It was a dangerous zone that required constant vigilance. It was in the wake of this traumatic event that the public mood, which had been one of near universal adoration, began to curdle. A backlash born of overexposure and a growing cynicism began to take hold. Her once charming relatability was now viewed by some through a new, more skeptical lens. It was seen as a calculated performance. Her jokes in interviews, her trips on red carpets, everything that had once been celebrated as authentic was now scrutinized as a carefully rehearsed act. The cool girl persona had become a trap, and now people were rattling the bars. This public fatigue coincided with her first major professional stumbles. The 2016 sci-fi film Passengers, co-starring Chris Pratt, was met with a wave of negative reviews, many criticizing the questionable ethics of its plot. It was also during this period that she became a vocal advocate for gender pay equality, penning a widely publicized essay after discovering she had been paid significantly less than her male co-stars in American Hustle. While her stand was lauded by many, it also opened her up to a new line of criticism, painting her as ungrateful or complaining. The final films in the X-Men and Hunger Games franchises were also met with diminishing returns. The magic seemed to be fading. The unstoppable momentum was slowing. By 2018, after nearly a decade of non-stop high-pressure work, Jennifer Lawrence was burned out. She was exhausted from the relentless schedule, wounded by the public backlash, traumatized by the criminal violation of her privacy. She felt, she would later say, that she had lost control of her own narrative, that the world had created a persona for her that she could no longer inhabit or escape. The girl from Kentucky who had conquered the world was now overwhelmed by it. In a move that shocked the industry, she made a conscious, radical decision. She did what had once been unthinkable. She walked away. She announced she was taking a hiatus from acting, a retreat from the spotlight to reclaim her life and, for the first time since she was a teenager, to simply be a private person. The Queen was abdicating the throne. The hiatus was not a retirement. It was a radical and necessary act of self-preservation. From roughly 2019 to 2021, Jennifer Lawrence consciously uncoupled herself from the Hollywood machine that had defined her entire adult life. She stopped reading scripts. She stopped attending industry events. She stopped being Jennifer Lawrence, the global brand, and started the difficult work of rediscovering Jennifer Lawrence, the person. This retreat was a period of profound internal transformation, a journey to build a life that was truly her own, far away from the transactional, image-obsessed world she had come to inhabit. The first and most significant step on this journey was finding love outside of the Hollywood bubble. She met and fell in love with Cook Maroney, a respected and low-profile director of a prestigious art gallery in New York City. Their relationship was the antithesis of a high-profile celebrity romance. Maroney was not an actor, not a director, not a part of the film industry. He was a private person, grounded in a world of art and intellect. In him, Lawrence found a partner who valued her for who she was, not for what she represented. Their relationship was a sanctuary, a normal life of dinner dates, walks in the park, and quiet privacy. They were married in an intimate ceremony in Rhode Island in October 2019. The marriage was a powerful statement of intent. She was choosing a life of authenticity and intimacy, a world away from the red carpets and the paparazzi that had once defined her existence. She was building a foundation for a future on her own terms. When she did decide to return to acting, it was with a new sense of purpose and a more deliberate, mature approach. She was no longer chasing nominations or box office records. She was chasing meaningful work. Her first major project after her hiatus was Adam McKay's 2021 star-studded satire, Don't Look Up. The film, a thinly veiled allegory for the climate crisis, allowed her to work alongside legends like Leonardo DiCaprio and Meryl Streep in a project that was both a broad comedy and a sharp political statement. Her performance as the fiery, frustrated astronomer Kate Dibiasky was a triumphant return, showcasing her sharp comedic timing and her dramatic gravitas. She was back, but she was different. The true centerpiece of her new era, the project that most clearly signaled her artistic priorities, was the 2022 independent drama Causeway. This was a film she had been developing for years, and it was the first film she produced under her own production company. Excellent Cadaver. The film was a quiet, contemplative, and deeply moving portrait of a U.S. soldier who returns to her hometown of New Orleans after suffering a traumatic brain injury in Afghanistan. Her performance as Lindsay was a stunning return to her Winter's Bone roots. It was an exercise in immense subtlety and restraint, stripped of all glamour and artifice. She conveyed a world of physical and emotional pain through the slightest gestures, the quietest line deliveries. The film was a testament to her growth as an artist. More importantly, it was a declaration of her new power as a producer. She was no longer just a star for hire. She was a creator, a filmmaker in control of her own stories. This professional maturation was mirrored by a profound personal transformation. In February 2022, she and Cook Maroney welcomed their first child, a son named Cy. Motherhood, she has stated, completely reoriented her world. It gave her a new perspective on her career, her priorities, and the very nature of fame. She became fiercely protective of her son's privacy, a stark contrast to her own overexposed youth. After years of being defined by the public, she was now the one setting the boundaries. The legacy of Jennifer Lawrence is a complex and still evolving narrative. She will forever be remembered as one of the defining movie stars of the 2010s, a unique talent who achieved a rare, simultaneous reign as a blockbuster action hero and a critically adored Oscar-winning actress. Her story is, in part, a cautionary tale, a stark warning about the dangers of overexposure and the impossible standards of authenticity that the public demands of its stars, particularly its young women. The backlash she faced was a reflection of a culture that delights in building its idols up to dizzying heights, only to savor the spectacle of tearing them down. The cool girl was a persona the world demanded and then punished her for perfecting. But to see her story as only a cautionary tale is to miss the point entirely. Ultimately, her narrative is one of profound resilience and self-awareness. She was a young woman catapulted into a level of fame so intense it was almost violent. She weathered a brutal and criminal invasion of her privacy that would have broken many. And she possessed the rare wisdom and extraordinary courage to walk away when it all became too much. To choose her own sanity over the continued demands of stardom. She is a powerful example of a star who successfully wrestled back control of her own narrative. She retreated from the chaos not in defeat, but in a strategic and graceful act of self-preservation. She used that time to build a life of genuine love, purpose, and quiet happiness. Her return to the industry has not been a comeback. It has been a recalibration. She has returned on her own terms as a more mature, more powerful, and infinitely more interesting artist. The most recent phase of her career, marked by her savvy work as a producer on projects like the broad comedy No Hard Feelings, shows an artist fully in command. She is no longer just the face on the poster, she is the mind behind the project, the boss making the calls. The final defining image of Jennifer Lawrence is not that of the clumsy girl tripping on the Oscar stairs. That was just the prologue. The defining image is of the confident, grounded, and in-control artist, producer, and mother she is today. From a stumble on the steps of glory to the steady, determined stride of a woman crafting her own path, Jennifer Lawrence has finally delivered her greatest performance, the masterful creation of her own authentic life.